Well, hello, all of you out there in the internet world. My name is Carrie Albright, and I'm coming from Hanapin Marketing to work with Michelle Morehouse from Clix Marketing today to talk to you about unlocking the mysteries of dynamic marketing. So, like I said, I'm Carrie Albright. I'm an account manager here at Hanapin, and I'm a blogger for PPC Hero. I was recently at HeroConf, and I got to meet a lot of great folks. Some of you out there listening right now may have even gotten the chance to interact with some of our team. It was a lot of fun, really good time. And feel free to throw me a tweet anytime during our presentation today if you have any questions specific to me or the content I'm bringing. And also, Michelle Morehouse is here to give us her insights. And Michelle, I'd love to give you a second to introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Hey, everybody out there. I'm assuming everybody is waving back at me since I can't see you. So I am an online marketing specialist at Clix Marketing. I've been in PPC since 2010, been at Clix for just a little under 2 years, but I'm excited to talk about some dynamic marketing features today, and hopefully we've got some good content for you guys.
Great. So like I mentioned, we both have Twitter feeds, but of course you can always engage with us using the hashtag ThinkPPC in your tweets. It's a great way to get a hold of us or give us your thoughts on the content we're sharing, things you want to know more about, and certainly if you've got any questions, feel free to use the hashtag there or use the question box that's attached through your little webinar screen. So first we're going to start off by doing a little poll for you. The first one here is, how long have you been in PPC? So your choices are A, less than a year, B, 1 to 3 years, C, 3 to 5 years, or D, 5+ years, which I like to call the dinosaurs because you've seen all sorts of things. Things have changed like crazy. So feel free to log in your information as far as how long you've been doing PPC. So I would say, having been just coming off of the big HeroConf conversation, I think that a lot of people that I met actually have been in PPC for quite a while, and I would say that maybe a couple years ago it was pretty common for people to be in PPC for like a year or two, but those folks have stuck around, and it seems like there are a lot of folks who are really getting into it and really getting to learn some of the really good best practices. So Michelle, do you have any guess? I've got the data here on how many people responded and what they said. Do you have any guesses on our attendees today?
Oh, good question. I'm going to guess that most people are probably going to be in the lower brackets, but we're still going to have kind of a smattering of people in the top.
That was a very safe guess, Michelle, and I have to say you're actually we've got 43% are 1 to 3 years, so that's pretty great. It's a pretty even spread between the other categories, so it's great to know that the folks we're talking to are probably ones that are really ready for these kinds of features. Okay, so we've got another poll question, right?
Yes, we do. So this one is a little bit more of kind of talking about who has control of your accounts or who manages your accounts. So options of like, do you manage it yourself? Are you part of a team that manages your account? Do you outsource it, whether you have an agency that does it or maybe a contractor, something like that? Or I guess option D can kind of coincided with all the other ones. Are you rethinking how your account's managed? You know, are you thinking about maybe making some changes in the future?
Yeah, I think that a lot of times as companies are doing it in-house or maybe have one person who does like SEO and PPC, that as it grows or changes, or it's just, you know, Google and Bing start coming up with all these wild tools that they start to realize bringing somebody in is kind of helpful. So kind of like that little gray area. Oh, cool. Well, I got the results here, and it turns out that almost 60% of the folks listening manage it themselves, which is great. I think that conversations like what we're going to have today are really helpful for people who are in it and, you know, trying to make sure that they're doing the best they can for their business, and at the same time know that it might be helpful to get a little input. And then also we've got 33% that say that they're actually part of a team that manages it. So that's good. We've got some brains out there that are going to be locking into the content we're going to share. All right.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we want to give just a little bit of a disclaimer as to kind of the themes that we decided to take with this webinar to present this content to you guys. So there's kind of been a differing of opinion or back and forth in our industry about whether using dynamic tools is a good thing or a bad thing. So Carrie and I have come up with sort of this devil's advocate thing. And as you can see, Carrie will be playing good cop today and will be presenting all of the features and all of the benefits to each one of these dynamic tools that we're talking about. and I will be the one with the horns. So I will be the one presenting all of the negative features and telling you why you shouldn't use it, that sort of thing. But we just wanted to kind of give the disclaimer that none of these tools are 100% good or 100% bad. We just thought this would be a really fun way to kind of go after it and be able to present both sides and have a good conversation about it. But as with everything in PPC, it could be a great feature for you or it could not work for your account. So we just wanted to let you know that we're going to be taking very extreme positions on each side, but that doesn't really reflect our opinions of all the tools as a whole.
Now, we did do a poll before this, and really we asked the people out there, who do you think would be the angel in the situation? Who would be the devil? So, I mean, we pulled a lot of people, and I mean, the results were just a landslide. I'm sorry, Michelle, but I just, you know, my intuition through the internet is palpable, really, I think. Anyway, yeah, what Michelle said is absolutely correct. I mean, both of us and, you know, our teams have experiences using some of these tools. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not so great. There's stuff to learn to, you know, maybe tweak things for better performance. So even though I'm going to be saying, here's all the great stuff about them, and Michelle's going to be saying, here are the warnings, it doesn't necessarily mean that our agencies really feel this way one way or the other, or that either of us don't recognize that, you know, every tool is different and every account and situation has its own factors to weigh in. So thought it'd be a little fun for you guys to get to hear some banter back and forth today.
You have no idea how difficult it is to do your hair with horns, though. It's really
You'll get used to it. You'll get used to it.
Absolutely. I'll have to work on it. That'll be fine. So just wanted to give kind of an overview of the tools that we're talking about today and give you kind of an idea of the flow that we're going to be taking. So we're going to be talking about 3 dynamic tools today. As you can see, dynamic search ads will be first, followed by dynamic keyword insertion, and then dynamic remarketing. So we're going to run through kind of the basics of each and kind of what they are and when you can use them. And then Carrie is going to be talking about the benefits that each of these tools can give to you. And I'm going to be talking about the warnings or the reasons that you may not want to use them in your accounts.
Cool. Well, thanks. Well, we're going to kick it off with dynamic search ads first. So dynamic search ads are something that came out a while ago, and it's pretty straightforward how it works. Basically, what Google does is it allows for you to kind of combine some of the different SEO efforts you've put into place with the fact that people are out there searching for you. So what it does is it takes the search that somebody puts into, you know, a search engine, and then kind of crawls your site for the relevant content that then they can bounce back through your ad. So it's kind of fun. It's a way to sort of start pulling information from your site based on what you've built out on your site to folks who are really looking for it. So to go through this just really quickly, some of the requirements you need, of course, a Google AdWords search campaign. This is a search specific campaign, and it's something that AdWords offers. A segmentation plan. So basically for that, what you're going to want to know is how you want to divide up your traffic. What is it that you want to do to focus your traffic into certain buckets of maybe specific keywords, specific products, things like that. And then the last thing you need is interest in giving this guy a whirl. It's pretty simple. It's something that's out there that's available for you to build out. So really, if you're interested in making it happen, that's going to be one of the key points. So like I mentioned, it's a search network feature. And so what you just do is go in and create yourself a campaign. Here I just labeled it search/dynamic search ads. That way I'd be able to sift through it pretty fast. And then going into the actual targeting, one of the options is dynamic ad targets. So that's great. And when I go to create myself an ad group, I'm actually going to decide how I want to segment that segmentation or that focus within the ad group. So as you can see here, there are a couple different options for the kind of content that you can really promote within each of these ad groups. Here I've got category. You can even do it based on URL or the page title or the page content, depending on how your site is structured. So in an example, I've got a client who sells shoes, lots and lots and lots of shoes. And so for me, knowing that I can go in here and actually start to identify some of those different shoe brands, some of the different shoe types, or if there's some sort of categorization that we have on our site, that's going to be really helpful for segmenting out these ad groups to really push for the best targeting with each of them. And then the ad copy. So this is really the part where it gets good. So like I said, dynamic search ads, that's something that Google actually is going to provide for you. So the sample I have here is a hypothetical shoe party. I thought that sounded like a great client. I would buy something from shoe party. or shoe party, but you know, maybe just recently, I don't know. But anyway, we've got a sample ad here, and what you can see is that you'll still, of course, have to create the content for your ad. So whatever your description lines are going to be, and obviously your display URL. But the cool thing about these is that Google is going to, one, dynamically generate your headline for you, so it's super, super relevant to whatever it is that they're searching for. But they're also going to find the right landing page for you. So this can be really helpful when it comes to actually saying, okay, I want to build something out. I'm not exactly sure what it is I'm going to include. I'm not exactly sure where I'm going to send them, but I know that I've got a lot of really good material on my site, and I want to make sure I'm bringing this traffic through and targeting them properly. So like I said, I've got this, this particular client that's selling shoes. And what I found when I put this into place is that actually it had a much higher click-through rate, which I would expect. I mean, if somebody typed in, you can see that there are a bunch of different samples here of things that prompted some sales. But if somebody types in Sperry Pilot Shoe, for example, and they see that pop up, then that's going to immediately resonate with them. And then clicking through, it's going to actually go to a page that's specific to those products that then is, you know, going to resonate even further. Now, what's interesting here is that when we did this, we actually saw a lower conversion rate than the typical search campaign that this would have gone through originally. So if I've got, you know, a Sperry campaign that's already targeting a lot of these different shoes, if somebody types in something that gets prompted by this particular DSA campaign, it's not a guarantee that it's actually going to convert better. So what I found from that is that actually what I need to do is figure out what my coverage looks like. So maybe I don't actually have the Sperry Pilot Shoe included in my regular search campaign, but being able to use that DSA campaign showed me that when it pops up, somebody is interested in clicking on it, is interested in connecting with it, and then maybe all I need to do is really make sure I'm customizing that a little more specifically than what I got with my DSA campaign. So in looking at this, this is kind of a sort of follow-up to using this tool and being able to actually turn it into something bigger, something better, something more effective. And here are examples of things that I don't currently have covered in my account, but obviously they're working, and it's something I might want to spend a little more time on. So I know that I'm telling you all these awesome things, and I know that I've seen some, you know, cool features within the DSA campaigns. I know that Google allows for self-generated ads, which is really nice because it gets me a little bit out of my box of thinking what I think should be the best headline, what content I think is most appropriate. What it actually does is it starts to show that popular content, that stuff that you saw on that list, that's stuff that people are searching for that I wouldn't have known to target necessarily, because maybe it's a really specific shoe, maybe it's a brand that they only have a few styles in, something like that, that maybe wouldn't have been a priority before this. But using this, I can see that it actually is a pretty big connection there. It also gives hierarchy of site relevance. So like I said, this is something that Google actually looks at your SEO content and says, okay, what is stuff that I can pull to this particular user to show them this ad and to make this connection? So it's really nice because I can say, okay, these are the things that are really dominating my site that Google is seeing the best relevance for. And that gives me a little more insight as to what I've got as far as my SEO coverage. And then lastly, allowing for segmentation by site content. That's really useful when it comes to whittling down on that excess spend, on things that aren't working, and kind of being able to sort of steer my ship as far as efficiency goes. I can actually look at it and say, okay, this is an area that I want to focus a little more budget in, or I want to focus a little more you know, higher bids in, that kind of thing, and get a higher performance for. So when it comes to DSA, I would say that that's one of the best features, is that there's control in it, which is great. There's also the ability to get new insights that you wouldn't have gotten before using this different tool. So that's what I think. That's what I'm saying. You guys should definitely experiment with building it out, seeing what you think, seeing what insights you can get into what product coverage you're able to do. Obviously, I'm talking about e-com in this circumstance, and I think that typically that's going to be the best place to start. If you've got an e-com account, this is something great that you may want to sample. For lead gen, it's a little more tricky, but it's definitely something that you can go forward with. So I'm sort of obligated to let Michelle talk here. Apparently, she has some sort of thoughts or opinions or insights into what she thinks may not be the best part about DSA campaigns.
Absolutely. I'm going to put my foot down. So kind of going at, Carrie said that there's a little bit of control in these campaigns, and that's great, but there's also lack of control in a lot of ways that can really make marketing managers a little bit nervous, honestly. As a PPC manager, I like to have complete control of everything going on in my accounts. So I just want to talk about some of the areas where you don't have as much control with these campaigns as you could in your regular search campaigns. So I've brought up the same screenshot that Carrie used, and I've highlighted in red, obviously the very ominous color, the aspects of your ads that you don't get to create when you use these dynamic search ads. So the dynamically generated headline, that is created using a combination of site content and search query, basically put together by Google. And you don't get to see what those are, even after the fact. Those are just dynamically created and your ad is shown, but you never get to see what your headline ever ends up being. Similar with destination URL, but not quite as ominous, not quite as the be-all, end-all. Google chooses your destination URL based on, like Carrie said, the SEO aspects of your landing pages. But let's say that you've put together a portfolio of PPC landing pages that aren't for SEO purposes. Sometimes that happens. You've got a folder that's no follow and they don't get to scroll it, but it'll still look through and choose your landing pages, but it just might not be optimized as well as you want. So you could end up having Google showing landing pages that just aren't as ideal as they could be. They might not be following the best conversion rate practices, but that's the one that they've determined is best for your destination URL. If you want to get really into the data, you can look back through Google Analytics and find which destination URLs they're using based on the campaigns sending traffic to your site. So you can still find that in Google Analytics, but it ends up being a very after-the-fact sort of thing. Another one of the things that you don't quite have as much control over is your keyword coverage. So as Carrie said, these campaigns can be really good for kind of doing some search query mining, that sort of thing. But again, it's very after the fact. You only know which keywords your ad showed up for after Google has already dynamically shown you for them. So you don't have the, quite as much control to keep yourself out of certain queries preemptively, but you could go back and see some search queries that you might not want and end up adding them as negative keywords later. So just kind of overall lack of control, lack of transparency, or at least a very irritating process to find which landing pages are being used. All that just is not something that I want in any of my accounts. So.
Hey, I think that whole mining through Google Analytics, looking at the landing page associated with this particular campaign, that sounds great. That's like a Saturday morning for me. Like, get some waffles and just go through analytics, look up this. I think that sounds like fun. So
it sounds like you should be the one wearing the horns. I want to eat my waffles in peace.
That's right. I'm a multitasker, really. It's
I like it.
All right, well, okay, at this point, we're going to do a little poll, just another little check-in to see kind of where people fall on this. So we told you that we're going to talk about DKI, dynamic search ads, dynamic remarketing, and there are some things that maybe these are tools you're familiar with, maybe these are tools that you've never even heard of before, you just like the word dynamic, you thought you'd check in to see what you're missing out on. So we've got 3 different examples here of tools that you use the most. So if one of those 3 actually ranks with you pretty highly, I would say definitely choose that. If you actually use all of them or have at least dabbled in all of them, feel free to choose D, which is all of the above. Or if this is all new to you and we are the first you're hearing about this, that's exciting stuff. Go ahead and choose E for none of the above. I know that all of these tools have been around for a while, so it's very possible that there's a lot of engagement across the boards. But it turns out, get this, Michelle, turns out that over half of the people who are attending actually currently use dynamic keyword insertion the most. It's exciting stuff coming on the next point in our presentation. Under 10% actually use the dynamic remarketing the most. And then let's see, about 6% use all of the above, and 30 use none. All right. All right, for the none users.
Yeah, none of the above. I like it. No dynamic tools. So I'm actually surprised. I'm surprised at the number of people who chose all of the above. I figured that there might be some people who only used like 1 or 2, but I'm surprised that any percentage, to be quite honest, have used all 3. So I think I think that's, well, for the sake of the webinar, that's not great, but for the sake of just PPC in general, I think that's a very good thing to do.
Well, I've got a theory on this. So we had a couple people log in and say they were part of a team that manages the account. So I'm wondering if it's like one guy uses, DKI, another person uses, dynamic remarketing. So it's maybe each of them have different experiences and they just decided. They're like, you know what, let's just do D, you guys. Let's just.
Maybe. Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, all right. Glad to hear that you guys all have varying levels of experience with these different tools. And I think that DKI is next up for conversation.
It absolutely is. So just covering some basic requirements of DKI, it's not a campaign type or targeting type in and of itself. It's just a way that you can kind of alter your ad copy, different areas of your ad copy to make it dynamically pull your keywords, as the name says, as opposed to having the handcrafted ad copy. So the requirements for this, again, Google AdWords search campaign. Definitely need one of those to be running DKI. Another requirement is understanding of proper formatting. We'll go through that, and that is one of the biggest features that helps you with DKI. The last one, and certainly not least, is the ability to find those fun little wavy brackets on your keyboard. Those are another key feature of dynamic keyword insertion. You got to know where those are. A hint: they're right next to the numbers and the delete key and enter. So they're over there in the top right.
Who's got time to find those? I mean, they're just they're tucked away with the square bracket.
I know. There's so many fun symbols on your keyboard. You can only choose so many to use. Awesome. So talking about the places that you can use dynamic keyword insertion. So you can use them pretty much in every feature of your ad copy that you want to. I've created a very Frankenstein version of an ad preview just to show you all of the places that you can actually use dynamic keyword insertion and what it would look like in the ad platform while you're doing it, just so with those fancy brackets and all that stuff, this will give you just an idea of what it looks like. One other thing to keep in mind is you always have to follow proper guidelines for ad copy. So we'll get into that a little bit later, but knowing how to use proper formatting, knowing when your keyword will be dynamically inserted versus your default text. In this picture is chocolate. Knowing that will really help you to know whether your ads are showing your keywords or showing the default text. Okay, so this next slide, stick with me. It's one that's a little difficult to explain and is very slide-oriented, I guess, knowing capitalization, that sort of thing. So, like I said, proper formatting is key for these types of, dynamic keyword insertion. So the default text up here at the top with keyword default text, that's what it looks like, and that's what you would end up typing into your ad copy at any point. So I wanted to give a few examples just so you would know kind of what it looked like. So I've got in this first column are the keywords that we're going to say are in our ad group. I've decided that the headline is going to be what we're dynamically changing in our ad copy. And then the third column is the actual search query. So those match up pretty well, I would say. They're exactly the same as our keywords, but just to give you an idea. And then the last column will actually show you how your ads will appear based on the formatting that you've put in the headline that is in the AdWords platform. So the first line here is all lowercase on the word keyword. Keyword is the place where you put all of your formatting. So with all lowercase in that first column, you'll actually see in the last column that all of your keywords or all of your headline is lowercase. With the second line, the K in keyword is capitalized, so that means that the first word of your dynamically inserted keyword will be capitalized, but the second one will not. The way you get the second word or all of the following words to be capitalized is to follow the formatting on the third line. So key and word are the two anchor words in keyword. And this is why I'm saying stick with me. It's kind of difficult to explain. But if you capitalize the K and the W, that tells Google that you want all of the first letters of all of the words in your keyword that's dynamically inserted to be capitalized. So you'll see in the last column there, you get buy candy online now, and all of them are capitalized. The next couple of lines are actually very particular. You can have some keywords that are all caps in your ad headline, but they need to be pre-approved by Google. So if your brand name is all caps and you dynamically insert your brand name into your ad copy, you can have Google approve that to be all caps. But just generally, these two lines that you see here that are the fourth and fifth lines, those would not actually be accepted by Google as is, because neither candy nor online is your brand name. And if it is, congratulations to whoever got candy. That's a good one. But those would be disapproved by Google because those aren't technically your brand names. But to follow that formatting, you would capitalize all the letters in key or all the letters in word, taking those anchor words that we talked about, and that's how you would translate that into the all caps in your headline. The second to last line is basically if you get your finger stuck on caps lock, or you think you're going to get something past Google with all caps in the keyword, that will not fly. Google will default you back to the third line, and you'll just have the first word of, or the first letter of every word in your headline be capitalized. This last one, wanted to give you an idea of what it would look like if you did not stick within like character limits, which is one of the rules by Google. If the search query is individual chocolates and your keyword is individual chocolates, you want that dynamically inserted. But the phrase buy individual chocolates now, that's actually 29 characters and will not be approved by Google. So that's when your default text will kick in if your keyword is too long or doesn't follow Google's best practices, or any other of a couple situations. You'll end up having just your default text in your headline. So that's where that little default text piece comes in. But make sure that it is something that is still pretty attractive to users while they're searching for you if they don't use the correct keywords. So buy chocolate now is still pretty attractive to me. It's not a great headline, but it's getting close to lunchtime, so I'm going to get a little hungry. But
the subliminal messaging in this slide is amazing. I love it. I think
it's fantastic, right?
Awesome.
All right. Well, I guess I'm going to let Carrie talk about the benefits of this tool. So, take it away.
And thanks for giving such a clear view of how people can use DKI. I think this was really good for selling its usefulness as far as capitalization or lowercase, things like that. So well done, Michelle. I really appreciate that. And this is a little sort of rumor that's going through the PPC industry, is that sometimes you actually can use those longer search query or the keywords inserted. Like it doesn't always cut you off at the character limit. And it's not, obviously it's not an official thing, and maybe even me saying it aloud is going to jinx us forever from getting to it. But
you're joining the evil side.
It's true. I mean, all this candy and chocolate, I'm just like getting drawn right over. But yeah, but that's something that's been kind of going around as far as people every once in a while seeing that a DKI ad that they have up actually does show, you know, a headline that's longer than 25 characters or a description line longer than 35. So every now and again it'll pop in there, but as a rule of thumb, definitely assume that will not happen for you. But it's definitely something that is out there that people are experiencing, so enjoy it while you can. So obviously, I think DKI has a lot of really strong qualities behind it. One, quick ad copy. Let's say you're not entirely certain, you know, what would be your best leading headline or what keyword you think is really going to, you know, drive people through that ad group to bring it home. Using DKI is a really good way of sort of letting the users experience it on their own terms. So putting DKI in as your headline allows you to use whatever, you know, relevant material or you know, promotional material, things like that you want to have in your ad copy, and also kind of keeps that headline open to be whatever it needs to be. As far as improving keyword relevance, I would say that that's a big one because it actually is engaging with things from your account and actually putting them into the ad copy and having that connection between what you've set up, what you designate as being important, and then also seeing how it comes through. And the user when they see that pop up, I mean, they were looking for candy online, and suddenly there's candy online right in front of them. That's an improved experience there. So we did a poll of a lot of our accounts a while back, and really took a look at those that are using DKI versus those that are using non-DKI, or what I like to call handcrafted ads. And just like, you know, the example that I was giving, I mean, when people see something that really resonates with them and resonates with the search that they're engaging in, you do see a higher click-through rate. So here we actually have a pretty substantial click-through rate when it comes to that kind of content. And even in the conversion rate, which is really fun, because it means that not only does that prompt somebody to actually click through, but something in them is saying, okay, I'm realizing that where I'm going is going to have something that is pretty relevant to what I'm looking for. So being able to draw those bridges and engage users in the process even more, and really make them feel like it's more customized to them, is a really good way of improving your metrics, like your click-through rate and like your conversion rate. Uh-oh.
Uh-huh. Now about the risks. Dun, dun, dun. So just want to talk a little bit about some of the reasons why you might not want to use dynamic keyword insertion. Carrie's stats look great, but that's not going to be the same for every account out there. Having an increase in click-through rate and conversion rate, that's fantastic. So if that's working for you guys, keep it up. But I think that there's still some drawbacks to this tool. So it actually dynamically inserts keywords, hence the name, not your queries. So if you've got broad match keywords in your account and one of your broad match keywords triggers something, that might not actually be very relevant to the people searching. So if somebody typed in buy chocolate online, but your broad match keyword is just chocolate store, you're going to have your keyword is going to say chocolate store is the headline, but they want to buy it online. And although it still kind of has the same messaging and is still pretty similar, it's not as relevant as it could be. So you're not able to handcraft that ad copy, headline, or body text to really match up as well as it could with the search queries that are coming through that you could with a little bit different ad copy. Again, in a lot of instances that I've seen, it can definitely increase your CTR, but I would say that Carrie's example is a little bit out of the norm in that it might not always increase conversion rate. So having the keyword match up might create a good amount of relevance between what the person typed in and what your ad copy says, but it might not be that you're actually selling exactly what that is. So just be wary that you could see a good increase in click-through rate, but maybe not in conversion rate, which would just end up raising costs but not raising your bottom line. DKI also muddies your ad copy testing data. So whenever you have keywords dynamically inserted, you could go back and reverse engineer which keywords triggered which ads and which search queries, all that stuff, but that sounds like one of Carrie's Saturday mornings that I want no part of. So it just becomes, you're not exactly sure which keyword or which messaging really sold the person on your ad, right? So if you had those handcrafted messages, you could actually put in different offers, different keywords, and really figure out which was the driving factor. But with DKI, it could be one of any of the keywords in your ad group, and you're just not really sure what is actually driving sales. My last one is commonalities with competitors. With you, if you use DKI in your ads, odds are one of your competitors is also using DKI in their ads, and having your keyword in the ad copy is considered a general best practice. But if everybody has all of the exact same keywords in the same essential format in ads, you're really going to blend into the background and you're not going to stand out. The name of the game in PPC anymore is differentiation. Make your ad more attractive than everybody else's. And if you're just dynamically inserting the same keywords, you're not really going to stand out as well as you could if you had that handcrafted message that really sold the features of your services.
You know, I'll give you that. I'll give you these points. These are decent points. And since you gave me such a beautiful table kind of breaking down how people can create DKI ads, I will say that the other really, really basic level caveat would be watching out for any typos that either you intentionally have in your account or you unintentionally have in your keyword list, and also using competitor names. I mean, it's pretty basic, and hopefully if you've already set up DKI, you knew this and you've blocked that immediately, but I would say that that's a common thing that floats through every now and again, that we all have a big red flag and say, okay, you're now showing an ad with a typo in it, so let's go back through and pull that out. So
those are
I'll
good
give you that
ones.
one, Michelle.
Thanks for the help. I appreciate it. Hey, I gave you the increased conversion rate in your example, so we're back to even. We're good.
Okay, we're back to even, people. We are keeping score, so be sure to weigh in. Awesome. Okay, well, on to the next round, the final round, really, of dynamic remarketing. So dynamic remarketing is this new and exciting thing. It's kind of like combining PLAs with remarketing lists. It's not exactly that, but it's pretty close. And basically what it does is it takes the content that's going to be relevant to people who've been to your site and combines it with beautiful, pretty pictures. So again, I'm going to be talking about e-com here. This is most commonly going to be something that you use with a traditional e-com account, preferably one that actually has a good selection of products. But the three things that you're going to need that are a little bit steep are the new remarketing code, a Google Merchant Center, and also your marketing lists. The new remarketing code is probably the biggest hurdle to make sure that you can get through. The difference between that and the traditional remarketing code is simply that there needs to be a little bit of information put into the code onto each and every page. And the new code that goes in there, it's going to be specific to that particular page of your site. So that way when Google's looking back and saying, okay, what is it they looked at? They actually have a value associated with that previous visitor. So that's something that needs to happen. Some web developer, whoever it is on your end, that's able to insert those values onto each of the codes for each of the separate pages. That needs to happen before you can really start using this tool. So if you're interested in this, which I strongly suspect that some of you are going to be interested in using this, I would say that that's definitely square one. Google Merchant Center, again, like I said, this is really using some of that PLA type feature. And so if you don't have a Merchant Center and you do sell products online, please just jump on in, start going on that. PLAs are waiting for you, and dynamic remarketing is also something that's waiting in the wings that'll be really useful. And all you'll do is just link this new campaign that you build with that Google Merchant Center. And then remarketing lists, turns out Google is throwing us a bone, and they're actually building the lists for us. So they'll actually prompt lists for shopping cart abandoners, converted visitors, things like that. So they'll actually give you some good lists to work off of. So when you go to build your dynamic remarketing campaign, it is just a display campaign. It's part of the display network because it's going to be showing some really nice image ads. And all you do is go in and build it out. You're going to select it as a remarketing campaign. And then there's an option to actually use the dynamic remarketing features. So you're going to link it with your Merchant Center account. And the product filter is your opportunity to kind of pare down what it is that you're actually going to include in this list. Maybe you have specific products that really don't, that maybe are complementary products that you don't necessarily want to be showing for this particular campaign or something. It might be that you want to structure this particular version of this campaign towards something in particular. But for the most part, most people are just going to use all products, because really, if they're on your site, if they're looking at specific products, and they either didn't convert or it's a reoccurring need, it's definitely something that you want to keep them in the loop for. So when it comes to targeting, there's some funny things here. One, it's a remarketing campaign. So you want to go through and you want to build this out in whatever way that works best for you as far as remarketing. Some people segment by the types of products. Some people segment by the point in the buying cycle. And like I said, Google has come up with a lot of remarketing lists that you can just use their segmentation, which is basically what pages they visited, kind of what major remarketing buckets they fall into. And one of the things that started popping up, and Michelle, you may have seen this in some accounts, is this targeting optimization, which is kind of a funny way of saying how much do you want Google to just start going for it, start bringing in people who maybe aren't even necessarily on your list, maybe somebody who is on your list, but they want you to be more aggressive because they've potentially converted in the past, or it seems like this is going to be content that if you really target it to a remarketing list, it's going to yield a higher conversion rate. So these are two new features that if you'd like to use them, you can. It's really taking yet a further back seat as far as what kind of control that you have. And for some control freaks that are on this webinar, I'm not talking about anybody in particular that's co-hosting with me or anything, just like general speculation. I would say that if you've got some nervousness about the control, I would hold off on using one of these tools, because it really is letting Google do what it thinks is going to be best, which sometimes is great, sometimes not so much, but sometimes it is, sometimes. So we got that option. And then when it comes to layering, once again, you can actually go through and layer by content. So you can actually go through and say, you know, this is the specific ID, the specific product type, specific brand, things like that. So here I have 3 examples. And for the first one, for ID, like let's say you want to actually go in and segment by the specific product ID. Now, that may be something where you say, okay, when I go in and target this, I know that this is a top performing item. I know that if somebody has looked at this, there's a strong likelihood that they'll go back and purchase it again, or that you know, this is something that's really popular in the industry right now. We're selling a lot of them. If there is indication for you that this is a top performing item, it might be worth it for you to segment out your specific targeting to that particular those particular products. Similarly with brands, let's say you have a brand specific promotion. You know, I mentioned an e-com client that sells shoes. If they have one particular product brand that's 30% off this week or something like that, that's a great opportunity for us to really target the people who are going to benefit most from that. So using our remarketing list and then using this next level of segmenting can really help us get the best message to the right people about the right products. And then the last one, using AdWords grouping, maybe for that one you might actually want to be gauging it based on performance. So maybe you're going to segment it out by the way that you actually recognize your products through AdWords, and then start to shave down what you're targeting, what's working, what's not working, but in slightly larger buckets that are assigned by Google. So there's lots of different ways to segment. There's specific stuff, there's sort of broad introductory steps that you can take, but really the idea here is that you're putting together some really nice looking images. And I didn't go through the rigmarole of showing you how to create a dynamic remarketing ad. There's all sorts of options. There's different kinds of layouts you can use for your ads. You can actually test one type of layout with another type within your ad groups. You can actually go through and see, is it the vertical scroll that works really well? Is it just having 2 images in my ad that works well? You can go crazy with the ads that you can create, but the idea is that the person who is seeing these ads is on your remarketing list, and they've been viewing a similar, what Google deems to be a similar product to what they've already been visiting on your site. So giving them that experience and then having a little bit more segmentation as you see fit really lets you take advantage of these different setups. So here, the things that I like about this, one, it kind of self-generates your PLAs. I mean, not exactly, but I think that the fact that you're seeing these nice image ads that are something that you actually have already interacted with or interacted with something very similar is a great way to draw people back in and remind them that they're interested in your products. Again, shows relevant products. So yes, it might show stuff that you've seen, but it might also show items that are like complementary items or just similar. And as you have, if you're an e-com client, as you have additional inventory coming in, this is a really nice feature to continue to keep those new products rolling through and continue to keep past visitors and past converters aware of what you've got. And again, I said that you've got a lot of segmentation options. You can do it by the user, by where they've been on your site, by what they've done on your site, and then you can actually use that to modify your remarketing message. I mean, this webinar is not long enough for us to talk about remarketing or remarketing messages, but there is a whole just world of opportunity for how you talk to your remarketing audience. So being able to combine that with these specific segments with the specific products is really a huge opportunity that, if you're able to put this together, is a really great option. And like I said, here at our company, we do a lot of case studies, we do a lot of trying new things and seeing how they work out. And actually, we had an account where we gave this a shot and saw a 72% drop in CPA through segmenting our audiences. So we were able to really say, okay, we know exactly who is looking at this, and we know exactly what we want to show them. And it turned out to really reduce a lot of the waste that we saw with just going through the traditional PLA searches. And like I said, pro tip, using multiple ad layouts for testing purposes is great. It's still getting the benefit of using these, but it's trying out different layouts to see really what is going to be the most effective way to show people what products you have at the right time for them. So I think we could probably just wrap the webinar here, Michelle. I think that we've really covered the dynamic marketing.
Try.
People are feeling good. Okay, fine.
Awesome. So I'm going to talk about the risks associated with dynamic remarketing ads. The first one is just the creep factor, right? So, I mean, you hear all of these things about people not being retargeted, and they think that it's an invasion of privacy. Us as search marketers know that it's not quite that deep, but you're really going to creep some people out with just general remarketing ads, and now you're going to show them pretty much exactly what they just saw on your site, like the specific products. That's really going to weird some people out and kind of turn them off from your brand, let's be honest. So just be careful that you're not being the creepy guy in the bushes watching somebody and knowing exactly what they're doing. So that could really creep somebody out.
At least not through your PPC efforts, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just do that in your regular life and leave it out of marketing. So don't spoil it for the rest of us. So lack of support for complementary and supplementary products. So Carrie touched on a couple of ways that you can use it for complementary products, but it's still not quite as robust and doesn't give as much control as I would like, being the control freak that I am. So if you send somebody to the exact same page or show them the exact same thing that they just saw on your site and didn't convert, that's not necessarily a great user experience. They might have seen it and didn't want it, and that's why they didn't convert. So showing them something that is a supplementary product that can take its place is a little bit of a better idea in that situation. Kind of like complementary products, you can still get into the weeds with it a little bit. Say somebody buys like a remote control car on your website, so then as a complementary product, you show them different types of batteries in your ad, because you gotta have that remote control car running. But maybe not all the batteries in that ad are actually compatible with that race car. You need to make sure that everything that you're showing is completely complementary or completely supplementary, depending on what your goals are with your remarketing campaign. And that just depends on, again, your customized goals around that. So dynamic remarketing ads can be great, but it just doesn't give you as much control as we would like with those complementary or supplementary products. Again, lack of control. I'm all about the control today. Google's algorithms will determine real-time bids for you. So it's kind of the same as just auto bidding. You have a little bit of control over your bids, but when it comes down to it, you're not setting the individual bids quite as much as I would like. Also, your ads are dynamically created using those remarketing pixels. Again, it's just you're not doing it yourself and you don't have complete control over it. So you're not really sure what's being shown out there and to who, and you're not guaranteeing your users a good experience from site to remarketing experience. The last piece, and this can be the biggest chunk for a lot of people, is that additional code. As Carrie said, it needs to be customized for each page of your site and those individual parameters put in there. That can be a lot of heavy lifting depending on how big your site is. So if you don't have a dedicated web development team, or you aren't the one in there doing it all the time, that can be a really big task to get done. It can be a real barrier to entry with this one. So if you don't have the time and you could use it better on conversion rate optimization, something like that, that might be a better use of your web dev time than changing all these codes on individual pages of your site.
All right. Well, I'll give you these points. I have to say, I can't argue them completely, and we've done a fine job of holding our own. All right, well, I think that more or less we've kind of gone through and highlighted some of like the great stuff about these, the stuff that's maybe a little more challenging or a bit more of a danger for those who haven't yet tried it. And so at this point, we're actually going to go through and do some of the questions that we've gotten during this webinar, which has been awesome. Before we do that, we've got our last poll, and let's see, our last poll here is, would you like help with your PPC accounts and your management? So we know a lot of you out there are managing your own, or you're part of a team. So it may be that you're actually you're looking for a little more advice. So what we have here is an option for two different things. You could do a free solutions blueprint from Hanapin Marketing, where we look at your account and provide the analysis and consultation for what you've got running so far. So this will be for accounts that have about 20K a month or more in ad spend. Or you can get a free opportunities analysis on your paid search or your display, or no, and your paid search and display and social media advertising.
It's all inclusive.
Seriously.
Yeah.
And
so
you can. And you know, going through these processes, it's not necessarily going to be me just saying, oh yeah, you have to use all these dynamic tools, and it's not going to be just Michelle looking over it and saying, like, no, get rid of all these dynamic tools, I hate it. But I promise it'll be very thorough and fair, and we'll keep our business out of it. So we've got a couple of different questions that have come through. So I'm going to go ahead and read a couple of those. One question that was pretty specific just has to do with the changing of the variables in the remarketing code. And I'll be honest, because I've got my presentation up, I can actually go through and give you the names of them. But there's, I think, 4 different components that you have to change in your remarketing code. And when you go to create the dynamic remarketing code, it'll actually say there what you need. And if you look in the code itself, it actually has something that says like insert value or something. And it's 4 different pieces, and it just has to do with the content, like the product name, the product page name, a couple of other variables that then Google
value.
I'm sorry, what was it?
And the total value.
And total value. Okay. Yep. Thanks, Michelle. We're working together.
No problem. See, we're a good team once we're no longer on opposite sides.
Thank God. Okay. But yeah, but I can't tell you. So like I said, that can be a challenge. We can both agree on that as well, that it can be a challenge to change the code. But I do know that Google is extremely aware of that, and they actually have a team that will kind of help you make that happen. And if you're a company that has a pretty robust website, you have a lot of products, typically you have some process that you use for making changes to codes on kind of a major scale where it pulls page-specific values. And so in theory, what you could do is just contact the Google team. They'd walk you through how to use whatever platform or program that you use to normally do that kind of back-end work. They'd actually help you do that. If you're just an individual who does your own web dev stuff and you're super impressive like that, it may just be worth a phone call to them to say, hey, I'm doing this myself. Give me the nuts and bolts of what's it's going to take to make this less of a pain. Because if you have more than 30 product pages, it's definitely going to be a little cumbersome to do it manually. So yeah, so there's that. So we have a couple other questions. One has to do with, let's see. Whoops. Okay. One has to do with just some general volume for the DSA campaigns. And somebody's just asking, what kind of volume do we see? Is it decent volume, kind of like Google Shopping, stuff like that? And what I can tell you is that for the DSA campaigns, what you're doing is you're really targeting the content of your site. And so what it's doing is it's taking the things that people are already looking for and just directing them through these ads. So a lot of times it's going to be really relevant to whatever your targeting is. Now, I've done it for the client that I was talking about that sells shoes. And so we saw immediately just a nice little lift in the actual volume that we saw through them. Now, one thing that I really want to make sure is clear is that let's say that I'm targeting something through this dynamic search ad, and you're afraid that you might accidentally be drawing traffic away from other parts of your account. One thing that they're pretty clear about is that if somebody is searching for something that exactly matches with the keyword you have elsewhere in your account, it's actually going to go ahead and let it go straight through that original ad. It's not going to steal it away and funnel it through the DSA campaign and kind of take that traffic away. But what it does is it actually looks for something else. So if maybe a broad match keyword is sort of triggered, but Google feels like your GSA campaign is more relevant, then it'll sort of funnel it that direction. So you're not necessarily going to have it blow up like you would with like PLAs or shopping campaigns where it's right there, it's ready, it's engaging with people right away. But you do kind of start to see a little bit of draw from that more broad traffic to Google saying, you know what, we can do a better job of customizing this ad copy. Let's go ahead and put it for the DSA campaign. All right, so let's see. Okay, so one question that I have for Michelle is, if the client wants to do this, but you're not really sure like what the best bet is on kind of going forward with like 1 or 2 of these different features, and wanting to know kind of how to start off small or how to start off in a sort of protected way so that we don't accidentally blow your budget or, not use it properly or something like that. Michelle, do you have any insights as to, going in easy?
Sure. Yeah. So I've seen that situation come up a lot. Either the client is really interested in using a tool and the search marketer running it isn't quite as into it, or it could be the opposite, right? Like a lot of the search marketers get excited about new tools, but the client's a little more wary. So kind of the best way that I've figured out how to approach those situations is to first off either agree on an amount of budget that you can spend on it and either pull that out of your current budget and have it designated as particular for that test, or get some additional budget on top of your regular monthly budget or daily budget, however you manage it, and have it set aside specifically for testing new tools, right? So make sure that it's something that you can be completely comfortable with spending, because as everything, all these new tools come around, it's always going to be a test. It's not always going to be a great turnaround for your account, but it's not always going to tank either. Sometimes it could turn out great. My only other piece of advice is to keep in mind the competitiveness of your industry or your vertical, and know what a reasonable size budget is. If you spend $20,000 a month, but you only give dynamic search ads a $50 budget one time, that's probably not going to give you the amount of data to decide whether dynamic search ads are a good or a bad thing for your account. So make sure that you're, one, comfortable with the amount of budget that you can allocate to these tests, and that both sides, whether client and search marketer or in-house manager and boss, are on board with that amount, and also make sure that it's an amount that will yield you enough data to actually make a decision on whether it works well or not. I've seen too many tests run short that didn't really yield anything, and fun tools don't get used because of that. So.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because sometimes when you do start off too timidly, it doesn't really take. Like it just, you
Sure.
end up sitting there watching nothing happen, versus when you go in and say, okay, this is how much I'm going to spend. We're just going to do this, and we're going to, give it a fair go, and then we'll assess if it's working for us or not.
Right. Yeah, and with the fair amount, you can either do it all in 1 month or wait a couple of months and save some extra off of your monthly budget each month, as long as, again, everybody agrees on it. And then in that third month, you've got 3 times the amount that you can save to test that new feature. So.
Yeah, awesome. Well, cool. Well, we are out of time today, but there are some additional questions, so we'll be making sure that we get back about those. And again, feel free to let us know through hashtag ThinkPPC what you thought. If you have more questions, if there's content that we maybe touched on that you realize you might want to know more about, feel free to reach out. You can either tell us you want us to do this again on a webinar. Maybe Michelle and I could even switch roles. I mean,
Ooh.
I love being the good, I love being the pro, but there's a lot of fun in being the other side of the switch too. So feel free to let us know what you think if you have any other questions. And again, you can go ahead and check in with Hanapin Marketing as far as our free solutions blueprint goes, or contact Clix Marketing for all the cool opportunities that they're able to find within the accounts that you have. And of course, feel free to give us the feedback on how things went today, what you thought, and if you have any other questions or needs. As your PPC heroes, we kind of take it personally that anything that you'd like to know, anything you'd like to learn about, falls on a lot of our shoulders. So feel free to reach out and share what you need. And Michelle, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being the horns to my halo, and hopefully people got to even spread.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. This is a lot of fun. So thanks for having me.
All right. Well, thanks so much, everybody, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye, everybody.